What's up, dude? How's it
Wow,
going?
super professional. I dig it. I'm just kind of going straight through the computer right now.
Well, yeah, this is my when we switched over to online lessons, I kept on trying to find different ways to get better results.
Mhm.
The students can only do so much, which is fine. But yeah, I went way overboard. I forgot that I had a little 16 channel mixer in the corner, so I was like,
Nice.
what can I do with that? So
There's no such thing as overboard.
no, not at all. Of what we're used to doing. We're so used to having constraints and being like, oh, we can only bring so much. So when you have the opportunity to use everything, you think
Yeah, I mean, like it's
cannot do.
there's so little going on right now that you can't just leave stuff laying around. You gotta. I mean, if I was talking to my friend the other day. I was saying like now's the time to like do stuff that you might not have done otherwise.
Absolutely.
Like I mean, I ordered an interface the other day, for recording and stuff. Like, because I didn't know shit about that, about like recording like through in home stuff. I knew people did it, but I just like was too intimidated by it for the longest time.
Cool. So what did you end up getting?
What was that?
I said, what did you end up getting? Interface.
The Scarlett 2i2.
Okay. Yeah, I ran the 2i2 for probably 2-3 years or so, and then I just upgraded to the 2i4 after that. The only difference being, at the time, the 2i2 didn't have like padded inputs, so if you're recording DI, sometimes the guitar would like clip the signal, but they fixed that on the newer ones,
Yeah.
which is cool. So yeah, that's what I'm running right now, and
Nice.
yeah, I've been dabbling with the home recording stuff since 2013 or so. But it takes up until this point to finally realize how all this stuff really works. When you're not constantly putting stuff out. So it's all trial and error, and you're always learning new things.
Yeah, man, that's like I didn't even since 2013. You've been like, I mean, at least since 2013, you've kind of like known what the stuff is. Like, so you've kind of had like a general gist of like what it's all about. Like I didn't really like for years, like until maybe like a year or 2 years ago, all my knowledge of recording was plug the thing in, get a good sound, hope it sounds good. That's
Right. It was a wacky start. So I had a terrible, Windows that I was using. It had like 2 gigs of RAM, so of course it's not going to run any program at all. So I had Audacity, and then I had a torrented version of FL Studio because I didn't know what like the DAW was at the time. So I'm like, oh, I can like put my drums on like the 16th notes and it sounds like drums. Cool. I put the drum parts together in FL Studio and then bounced the audio into Audacity, and then I used my Line 6 pod plugged in direct with USB, and I recorded the guitar parts in Audacity, and I was like, this is like super cool. I was using like regular computer speakers to mix. So it was like those 2 little like 1-inch speakers, and then like this foot tall subwoofer. And at first I was like, oh yeah, this is so cool. And I put out my first song. I want to say in 2013 I put out the first Regression single. Listening back to it now, it could have been a lot worse. I thought double tracking was, I just copy and paste it into another track and just pan it, right? And it's like, no, it does not achieve the same thing. And got a little bit better when I put out the first Regression album in 2015 was when the first one came out. And then I sat on all the material. I had a whole other album ready to go, like 60 minutes worth of music. And my motivation for it just kind of went down.
Right.
Because the gigs started coming up. So it was a fair trade-off. My
Yeah.
solo bedroom metal project or musical theater and casinos and stuff like that. So it's
And
a gift.
money, you know.
Yeah, it took me until another Berkeley class where we had to put out like a finished product at the end of one of the classes.
Hmm.
Um, it's called developing your artistry. It's like that 101 course that every art major had to take, and it was
Hmm.
basically just we'll start with an idea. It can be anything, and then at the end of the semester, give us like a final project. So I finally put the next EP out after that.
Hmm.
Um, and that's all I've been doing in terms of my own music. It's mostly doing all the other stuff now, which is really cool. So what are you hoping to get out of the home recording stuff?
Yeah, what am I hoping to get out of it, you're saying?
Yeah, like what was your motivation, inspiration to kind of get going with it?
Well, just because it's like, I'm sure it's the same for you. Like, I have a lot of friends who have like, who, I mean, like, no one that I know has like, besides maybe you, has like a fully like decked out studio type of thing. There's no one, like, yeah, because most people I know live in like, house in like apartments, or like, they're still of, they're living with their parents or whatever, and so they don't have like the space to make like, to like pad out the whole room and all that stuff. But like, but it's also like, I just want to like, I just wanted like a better method of like putting stuff out, because right now all I have, like, the only like recording stuff I have is like, my phone, and just like, the shitty fucking camera and microphone that is built in with it. I'm like, that can only take me so far, you
They're
know.
getting better, but right, they're not quite there. You can buy that little Audio Technica one that kind of plugs into it through USB, and that's a little bit better. But then you got to figure out how to hold up the microphone while you've got the camera over here, and it's
Exactly. I actually, it's earlier today. I ordered like a microphone that I can plug into my phone.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was just like, I just saw it on Amazon. And I was like, anything to make to like improve the quality even marginally. Just like,
Definitely.
that's all I really want. And also just to be able to like, the other, I guess, there's not like one specific reason why I'm like kind of like really now focusing on it. I mean, I mean, for now, I guess it's more of like a time issue, or like a timing reason, because like now I have all the time in the world when I'm not, doing Zoom teaching or whatever. And like, I'm about to graduate. Like, I got, I'm not really going to be doing anything else, so like, may as well devote some time to learning something I haven't really dabbled in before. you know
Yeah, definitely. I'm still finishing up, my degree and whatnot at Berkeley.
hmm.
So this semester I'm doing, like an entrepreneur class, which is cool and all for the business part of the degree. But then I'm also taking a recording class for Logic, which is, the DAW that I use.
Hmm.
And it's really cool because even though I've been using Logic since 2014, but what's cool is that it's a little bit more in depth. So like all the tools and menus and shortcuts that I just never bothered to learn, it's chopping off so much time. It's not even funny. They say that you spend roughly 40 to 60% of your time in the beginning just navigating menus and shortcuts and figuring out how to get from here to here. Even though it's right in front of you, it might only be like two button clicks. How do you make those two buttons just become like one button to get from, one patch or one channel to another? So it's been pretty cool. So I've done like three projects with that so far. And I actually just, finished another one that kind of had like a Doors vibe, like a cool 70s classic rock thing, but
Hell
it's,
yeah.
it's super cool. So that's what I've kind of been doing, in terms of, biding time and whatnot. I've got a list of questions and stuff we can go on, but
Cool.
that's what I'm doing recording wise.
Nice, man. Yeah, like, I guess I guess in terms of like once I get like the bare bones kind of stuff down, like, I mean, like, so like, I kind of went through like a list of like must haves for like recording, so obviously interface, speakers,
Yep.
DAW, all that stuff. And like, if you want to do, like, I mean, a lot of people recommended like recommended if you're going to be like recording through like if you're going to be like recording like through an actual amp, then like maybe getting a microphone, or pray that your amp has like a line out type of thing, or getting like one of those one of those virtual like bias effects, or like
Yeah, like an amp sim.
yeah, like that, like the amp sims or whatever. And I've I'm trying to like keep everything under like 2 grand like total, like.
Dude, 2 grand is a good starting budget. Like
Mhm.
I think in the beginning. So again, I'm excluding the computer, because that
Yeah.
just brings up. But excluding the thing, I'm still running basically my first real setup. So I've got my Yamaha HS5s. Those were 200 a piece, but I think I got them on sale. So I think I spent 300 on the monitors,
Hmm.
$100 on the stands for them. The interface at the time I think was just under two, and then I already had the cables and guitars and stuff like that. So right, once you factor in the computer, like 15 to 2 is kind of where you're looking at for something where in 6 months you're not already looking to upgrade. Because that's the other thing too. Trust me, budget's a thing for everyone.
Yeah.
Even the guys who might have like a $10,000 budget, for doing like major projects, they still don't want to spend 5 grand on something just to then wish they spent like five and a half 6 months later.
Yeah.
So what did you end up choosing, like in terms of speakers and programs and stuff like that?
I actually have like my wish list right here.
Yeah, it's
I've
here.
I mean, I got like a bunch of recommendations. Like I've been talking with someone from Sweetwater,
Yeah,
because that's where I ordered the interface. So
yeah,
I've actually made like a whole like wish list of like must haves and stuff. So I
yeah.
got
Yeah.
I got like the well, I mean, he recommend forget which ones he recommended, but there's yeah, the ones that I was looking at were the Mackie CR3 3-inch monitors, and those are like you get two of those, and they're like for like $90 or
Yeah.
something. And like all the reviews seem like really all the reviews are like really like top quality. And again, like I would, if the ones that you got, like I would get them if I had like, if money was no object. But like,
Right, right.
you know it's like that's probably what I'm gonna end up getting, a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 paychecks from now. um and then in terms of like DAW, like I don't have the budget for Pro Tools, or any of those,
Are you running PC or Mac?
PC.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, but he recommended a PreSonus Studio One, which is just under 300, and like that's also like, he put in like a really good word for that, and the reviews
I've been
seem really
hearing good
for
things
that.
about Studio One, because it's like a step up from Reaper, which is where a lot of people tend to start, but it's not the most user friendly, and it's just the level below. Well, again, I've used Pro Tools for a bit, and I personally find it to be a little clunky to use because again, I come from Logic. I've been running a Mac setup, since my recording career kind of started, and I've just been, using Logic nonstop. Yeah, Pro Tools might be, like the standard, so to speak, but the learning curve on that just bothers me to no end. But I've seen a lot of, people, who have used all the things, Cubase and everything. And when they tried Studio One, they said that it's very straightforward and, easier to kind of navigate. So I think that's a good pick for sure when you're
That's
running.
kind that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to like jump through hoops and like, try to figure out how to get like the most basic shit down. Like I want something that's laid out and very kind of, get kind of like, very like, here's where you go, idiot. Like fucking don't like don't
That's what it's all about, That's what it's
yeah.
all about.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't want to like I don't want to feel like I don't want to feel like, like I have to spend, an entire month just figuring out how to navigate the fucking menu. You know.
Cool. So you've got the Mackeys, you've got the Studio One. What else are you looking at?
um, well, in terms of like virtual guitar amps and stuff, Bias Effects was like the first one that came to mind,
Okay.
just because like before I got like I I had like had experience with it beforehand, and by that I mean like my guitar teacher before I got to college had it in his like studio or whatever. So like I was always like fascinated by that, and like that's relatively inexpensive. I think it's like 200 or 300 or something.
For the full thing, and you might not even need the full thing. I think the bias effects I have might be like the $70 version or something like that. I don't use it because I have the other stuff, but let me see if I can figure out which one I had, because there's like different levels, because then you also have like the bias amp where like you can tweak the components of the amp, like, oh, I don't want to use 6L6s, I want to use EL34s or whatever, and
Hmm.
not quite for me. But
No.
yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. There's bias effects, bias amp, bias pedals, like make your own pedals. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool, maybe.
Like, yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
I'm sure if I get it, then like I'll like go down a rabbit hole and start like doing some crazy.
the cool thing is I believe they do incremental upgrades. So like if you bought the one, then you only like pay the difference to upgrade, or you get like a discount to upgrade down the road, which is pretty cool. What I like about Bias a lot is that it lays everything out the way that like a modeler would. So you have the beginning of your signal, and then your amp, and then your post. So it's easy to click and drag things around. Anything that you can click and drag is a hell of a lot nicer than having to go through separate menus and separate plugins. And it's like, why can't I just have everything in one place? And I think that's why it was so successful when it first came out. I remember dropping like, because when it came out originally just for like the iPod Touch and the iPad, it was like $10 for the app or $20 for the app, and then all the downloads were like $5 to $10 each. So I think I dropped like $100 in iTunes gift cards, finding all the different amps for it. And I haven't touched it in years, but if I ever go back to recording on my iPhone, and then I've got all the DLC.
One day you'll come back to it.
It's also just a great like practice jam tool, because like if you're traveling or whatnot, you can just bring your laptop or bring your phone and like one cable or adapter, and you've got all your sounds with you, which is really cool.
That's right. But there was another one that and also like if I another like I guess like so I guess I have like three options. It's like bias effects, and then the other one was more straightforward. It was just like kind of just going straight through my pedal board, because this is like because like the one that I have, this is the GP10 from Boss, and this one is kind of like it's like a MIDI kind of I guess it's like sort of like a Helix, or like
Yeah.
a fractal or something. It's not as expensive, but it's like it's kind of the same idea. You can like
As long as
customize.
it transmits audio through USB, then yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you can customize like tones and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So like there's yeah, I mean usually what I'll do like for a gig is like, I mean like if it's for like a rock gig or like something that I'm doing with the band, then I'll bring an amp with the pedal. If it's like, there's been a couple of occasions where like for pit gigs I could just go straight through the pedal and then like go in through the house. But there's been very rare instances of that actually sounding good to me. So like,
The big thing there is that you need your patches to be made for that purpose, because you no longer have that amp or speaker to kind of do it. And I figured we could talk about that too, because the what was the last pit gig I did? Uh, I think I filled in for Ben to do Mamma Mia. That might have been the last thing I did. I don't even remember when that was. That was probably like during the fall or something. But anyway,
a dog's age.
I used the AX8. Right. Oh, you subbed for me for Little Shop, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So right, that little Bose speaker I had, right, that was just for my own volume, but I was going direct for the rest of it. So what I did was, like I had my patches kind of made for the bows, just very flat, neutral sounding. And then when we went direct, I just kind of talked. I like, the sound guy was like, "Hey, do you have like 2 minutes to just work out stuff?" I was like, "Yeah." And we just basically set high pass and low pass filters. So just took all the harshness out and took some of like the rumble out of the low end. And then he kind of tweaked the rest. But yeah, like my pit patches sound great in the pit. They sound like absolute shit outside of that because they're made just to sit in a musical theater context.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing with the digital gear is that you have to tweak everything. So, like copy and paste your settings so then you can tweak them for, the new room that you're in sort of thing.
Yeah. I think it also depends on like, on what kind of like sound equipment that the venue or the theater that you're playing at has.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when the first time that I used this board for a pit gig was for American Idiot, and like I had gotten it like I'd gotten it for Christmas, but I like was still figuring out how to use it and stuff.
Yeah.
But once I like got it, because the way it works, like you can just like plug this straight into the guitar, but let me grab the guitar for reference. But I don't think I've like showed you like full out, but like this, it comes with like a MIDI
pickup. Yeah.
Yeah, that you can attach to the guitar, and then you can, because some of these patches like you don't need the pickup for, you can just plug straight into the guitar. But but some of them like you can get like synth sounds and like I've never found any use for them, but I just think it I just think it kind of looks cool too, just to have.
Hey, I mean, Pat Metheny has been using the trumpet sound on the Big Boss unit for how many decades now?
Oh yeah, I've used that. I've used that plenty of times when I want to do like a really shitty, Pat impression, just like that. But when the first time I used this, I had brought an amp, but then they saw the pedal board and they were like, oh, we can just go straight through the pedal, and so like we just put headphones on and they like dialed it in really nicely so it wouldn't like so the sound wouldn't like break or anything, and it sounded nice. It was good. Like I could control the volume with the fucking
the expression
whatever
pedal.
it called. Yeah, that the volume, the expression pedal. Yeah. Shows you how well I know my gear.
The terminology for this stuff is all over. And again, I kind of got into the model thing earlier than I thought. So let's say this is like 2 years into having like the electric guitar. All I had was that little Fender practice amp that you would have gotten in like the combo pack. I didn't have the combo pack, but it was just an amp my dad found on Craigslist. He's like, it's $40, we'll get it from. And eventually I was like, it doesn't sound like what I think a guitar sounds like. So I remember that my uncle had one of those old Digitech multi-pedals, the RP. I think he had the 255. So we went to Sam Ash one day, and they were looking for like a birthday Christmas present, because mine's around the same time. And I found one, and it did the whammy sound, like, ooh wee, ooh wee, and I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing. So my dad's like, you're gonna use it for? I'm like, no, I'll use it for other things. Of course, that's what I want to use it for. So we got it. It was the coolest thing, all the different presets, right? There was a punk one and a metal one and a Santana one. So it was the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
Then eventually, then I got into the Line 6 stuff, and then, come around, college time, I was able to get my hands on the Fractal, and I've got a Kemper over here. So learning the terminology, though, like I said, I've been using this gear for so long. It's such a steep learning curve, because, right, you can just plug it in, use what they give you, and it'll sound pretty good. But to get like that extra 10%, it takes, a lot of time to really get it right.
Yeah. So, to get, it's like a very, very like fine line between a sound that works and like the sound, like the sound that you're looking for.
Oh yeah. Just before we were doing this, Finally got one of those like lower crunch kind of mid gain things out of the Kemper.
Mm.
It just breaks up so nicely too.
Yeah.
But trying to get one of those like low mid gain kind of things, that takes a while to dial in for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, yeah, like for it's when you talk about just like figuring out what all this all this terminology and all these like little things really mean. It was just like I didn't like when did you like first like when like I think we're all like kind of gearheads in our own way, but like when did you like start really like like get like developing a taste for like specific things? Like when did you officially become a gearhead, I guess?
Oh yeah, so this was probably April May of my junior year of high school. All right, so there was a estate sale in town. I don't know why my that one piece of hair is whatever. So, an estate sale in town that my music teacher at the time had heard of, and he's like, "Hey, I know that you've needed an acoustic electric guitar. Why don't you go check out this lady's house? She's in town." So I'm like, "Cool." So we go over there. Her husband passed, and there was a whole bunch of stuff: acoustic electrics, electric guitars, ton of pedals. A lot of like older, kind of cheaper stuff. But there was quite a bit there. So I go and I check everything out, and I went back another time, and she was like, "Oh, is there anything that you're into?" And I'm like, yeah. So what I did was I took pictures of everything that was there. I went home and I did my research to see how much everything was. And, it can be hard if you're not a musician to figure out how to price things, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, I came back and, with my dad, and he was like, what if we just kind of bought everything, right? Because you're going to want a lot of this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I want a lot of this stuff. There was like 60, 70 things there. And so he's like, all right, well, how about this? Like, I'll front the money and you sell what you need to pay me back. And then the rest of it can be profit. And this will be like your first kind of dip into, responsibility and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, I think I can do this. So, we made her an offer, and it took like 5 car trips to get everything home. My basement looked like Sam Ash threw up all over it for months. So I made back the investment within like the first 2 weeks or whatnot. And then I sat on a lot of that stuff for a while. Everything from a MIDI guitar to vintage Japanese Boss pedals and everything in between. There was some really cool shit. But I had to find a place to sell it. So I put all of it on Craigslist at first. And then I found a Facebook group called the New Jersey Gear Exchange. All right. So lo and behold, I start posting on there. There were maybe 1,000 people, maybe 2,000 tops. So it was still really new. So it was mostly just guys on Craigslist. So none really happened. And then eventually I started noticing, like the page had, some spam leaking in. So I messaged one of the guys who was running the page. I'm like, hey, I like your page. I'm selling a lot of stuff. Like, do you need another hand kind of running things? And that's how I slowly took over to become the admin of the New Jersey Gear Exchange. And the whole gear thing just kind of went from there. What are we at right now? We're at it's not gonna. We're almost at 10,000 members. We're at 9,400 right now,
Nice.
which is really cool.
Promote it like crazy so we can get it up to 10K.
Absolutely. New Jersey Gear Exchange, your place in the tri-state area for all things music related.
Go join it.
So once I started taking that over, that was around the time I got my Line 6 pod. So right, the Line 6 version of your pedal, and I learned that I could like download other people's tones and tweak it. So I was like, dude, I can sound like anything I want. This is super cool. So I'm like, John Petrucci all up in here. So that was super cool. And then eventually I started figuring out like, okay, so what are the people who I look up to? What are they using for gear? And how can I use what I already have to try to do that? So that's when I really learned about, EQ and the different kinds of pedals and different types of pickups and stuff like that. And it just got to the point that by the time I got into college, I knew what the gear did, and I just had a blast buying, selling, and trading. It became a full hobby, and it also made some money too.
Mm.
So eventually, basement starts to slowly look like home studio. So it's been a blast for me. It was really just something else that I could do. Because for a while I didn't have a car payment, until first year of college. So I had an old car lying around that I was using.
Hmm.
So, I had some money, and, what else is an 18, 19-year-old going to do who likes guitars? He's going to buy a bunch of stuff.
Buy
So,
guitar.
I'd buy it, try it out. If I liked it, kept it for a bit, if not traded. But I always made sure that I never lost money, and that's the most important thing.
Hmm.
So you can buy all this stuff and whatnot as long as you're still kind of in that zone. You're not making money, but you're not losing money.
Yeah.
So that's why I swap gear all the time. You're like, dude, how do you have all these nice guitars? And I'm like, well, I don't really have all these nice guitars. Like, there's like six that I have, and I just tried different ones. You know,
That's a good way
that's
of
where the
going
whole
about
gear
it.
thing came in. And then once I joined my current cover band, Remember Yesterday and Those Amazing Decades, I knew exactly how to get the tones I needed to cover those songs with the gear I had. So once I got the Mesa Boogie, John Petrucci model, never bought another amp after that. Haven't needed one, haven't wanted one. And then the only reason I picked up a another Kemper, because I had one like 2 years ago. I picked up another one right before this whole pandemic hit back in March, because it was just easier for the band that I just joined, Triple Addiction. We're a southern rock band based out of Hillsboro.
Hmm.
I went back from not having the hour to set up for a cover band gig, but it was more okay, cool. The other band's off. You guys have 10 minutes to set up and tear down. I hadn't done that in such a long time,
Right.
so I was like, yeah, there's no way in hell I'm bringing this. So at first, I tried the HX Stomp, right, the real mini Helix, and
Hmm.
that thing was cool for a bit, but it didn't quite have all the flexibility I needed. So I grabbed the Kemper, and I had my quickest load on ever. It was literally 60 seconds to put all my stuff on stage, turn up, get tuned, go. 60 seconds to break it all down.
And you're just
I'm
waiting.
not
You're
looking
just waiting
back.
for everyone else.
I'm not looking back at all, because then that gave me the other 14 minutes to help us get our in-ear set up and get the other guy's stuff plugged in and whatnot. But yeah,
Hmm.
a minute load on time. I the
Yeah,
Chris that sent me.
I think that's like the dream that every guitarist prays
The
for.
other guitarist looked at me and he's like, "Are you ready to go already?" And I'm like, I strummed my E chord through the speaker, and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm ready to go." And
Hell
he's
yeah.
looking at me with like both his guitars in his hands, and he's like, "I don't even have my stuff set up." So it was
I
it
still
was
got to
pretty,
plug in, man.
yeah, it was
Everything.
coolest thing. So that's all I'm at with gear. I haven't bought like stomp box pedals in the longest time. The only two pedals that I have three. I keep a fuzz pedal at home because I never have a need for it, but every now and then there's a song that has fuzz, and I just want to cover it so badly. So I got an Earthquake, or a Hoof Reaper is the name of it. It's super cool.
Nice.
I still have my wah pedal, so for the cover band stuff, I bring it out. It's the Dunlop John Petrucci. If you can't tell, I'm kind of a big Dream Theater fan. And then the only other pedal I have, which I just got again, is the Digitech Drop Tune, which is the one that tunes your guitar down.
Right.
Because like I said, I've used like every modeling unit. None of them can pitch shift as smoothly as the separate pedal itself. So that's oop, my guitar was still plugged in. So that's this guy right here. It's the second one I've had, and
Damn.
it's straightforward. It's down a half step. These are all semitones, and then it goes down,
Hmm.
as far as you need. It's pretty cool. You can do dive bombs on it too. If you set it to momentary, you just kind of put your foot down and it goes wee, which is kind of
This
cool
one,
stuff.
the one that I have does that too. Like you can set it. You can set.
Oh, it's
With
super thick. Yeah.
with these with this pedal, like you kind of have to. Yeah, you have to like program like the different tunings and
Yeah.
stuff. So I have a bunch of them. I have standard half step down, standard open D.
Right. With your MIDI pickup, you kind of have that all already, which is super cool. I've looked into your unit a couple times,
Hmm.
and again, the only thing that's ever held me back is, you know, as crappy as it sounds, I never have one guitar long enough to install the pickup on and just kind of leave it there. So,
Yeah, you're right about that. Like, dude, the amount of times that I've like The amount of times that like I'm playing and I like accidentally step on the wire, like on the cable, and like disconnect the pickup and stuff. It's like it never happens. It never lasts like long enough for anyone to notice because like because like I'm always like when that happens I'm like and like
Yeah, go for it.
exactly.
Yeah, gear is a lot of fun as long as it's not like an obsessive issue, and as long as you know how to use it. Because one of the funniest things, and not shaming, everyone starts somewhere else. There was a guy who came into a gig that I played recently who like claimed like oh man, I've been using this for years, pretty confident. But it was a gig that it had backline, but he was using a modeler and he didn't have a power amp or an amp to power it, right? So like you can't plug one of these things straight into a speaker. There's no power amp to drive it. So he gets to the venue and he's like, oh, so where's the amplifier? And everyone's like, oh well, they had speaker backlines but we don't have amp backlines. And he was like, well, how am I supposed to plug my thing in? And the guy's like, well, you can go direct and we'll just kind of go from there. And he started freaking out. Like, I felt bad for the guy. So I go out there and I'm like, hey, man, do you need anything? Because I had my Kemper and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, I have my unit, but there's no amp here, blah, blah, blah. So he went direct and he did fine. But that's one of those things like, you know, you kind of have to really know what you're doing before you go out. And, every now and then, you can have a show where, you have like a flop or you're testing something out. That's fine. But, it was opening for like a national act. So, he was a little freaked out. So, I tried to help him out a little bit, but you can't really plug a modeler into a modeler and expect it to work. I was like, hey, dude, like, do you want to use my Kemper? And, I totally get it. He's like, I don't know how to use it. I'm like, dude, that's totally valid, but.
Yeah, totally. Especially like on the spot like that. He was probably like totally frazzled.
Oh yeah, it's like I have to like bring his guitars on stage and stuff, while he got it plugged in with the sound guy and whatnot. But you gotta know your stuff. Meanwhile, the band that went up after him, I saw that there was no amp on the side, but he had a big pedal board, and it sounded amazing. So I'm looking around for an amp, and I don't see one. And I'm like, well, he's not going direct because he doesn't have like a multi-unit. He just has a bunch of stomp boxes. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? So after the gig, we're waiting for the headliner to go on. And I woke up to him. I'm like, dude, like, what were you using for an amp? And he's like, come check out my pedal board. And you know how they make like the mini versions of all those amps now?
Yeah.
So he took a mini PV 6505, gutted the shell out, and put it on his pedal board. And he just runs a long speaker, like a 20-foot speaker cable. I'm like, now that's a dude who not only knows his shit, but how to like make his own stuff out of it. It was the coolest thing. He took the little, black and silver shell completely off, put it in just a regular, like tread plate steel casing, with a fan and heat sink, and literally it's just a pedal board that he puts on the floor, and his amp is on his pedal board. It was the coolest thing I ever saw. Wow. So I'm like, do you ever have any issues with it? He's like, nah, if I do, I just unplug all the pedals and plug the fuck into the front of it, and I just keep on going. It's great. I'm like, it's amazing.
Like, dude, that's something else. That's something else we can talk about. Just like people who like just have a knack for just like that, all that super creative stuff. And it's just like,
if you don't have a solution in front of you, you find a solution. So his big thing was, I'm tired of having to take 2 trips and having to plug a cable from the board into the amp. And then it's one more thing I got to trip over. So he's like, let's just do 1 cable into the guitar and 1 cable the other side to the speaker cabinet. I'm like, yeah, now that's called 1 trip in and out. And that's what I've been at, But his was even, more efficient. I'm like, oh, so.
Yeah. And like, or like, I know a lot of people who build their own guitars, or like, like replace the, they totally, they take a guitar they have and totally just like, just maybe not gut it, but like, they make it like totally different than what it was. Like my Telecaster right here. This was, let me, I might have shown you like the pickups before, but so this is just like a standard like Mexican Tele,
Yeah.
And it came with like the stock single coil pickups at first, but then like my one of my friends who's like a huge telly nut,
Yeah.
he like I went over like he showed me one day like his what he had done to his Telecaster, and he put like three Seymour Duncans in there, and it was like it sounded like, I mean, it was still like very much a Telecaster, but it sounded like so much more, and like
Yeah.
and I was just like I saw that, I was just like, whatever you like, please tell me like what you did to that thing, because
Yeah.
I want that. And he was just like, oh yeah, I just like took like, you know, I looked up online, I found these pickups, and then I like sawed, I like, you know, sawed out the middle part of the guitar. I'm just like, it's like, so you want me to do all of that? Like I don't know, like, first off, I don't know what half the words you just said even mean. Okay.
Right.
I just but then yeah, I was just like, I was like, whatever you put in there, put in this, please.
For sure.
And so I ordered the pickups. It was these three Seymour Duncan pickups, and then brought it to a tech, and he like sawed a hole, he like cut a hole in like underneath the pick guard so it would make room for the humbucker. And then like I had my friend like put the pickups in, and I'm just like, I'm happy, like I'm glad people like you exist. I want to know how you like how your mind works when you think these things, because I'm just like I want to do all that stuff, but I'm just like terrified of messing things up.
Yeah, it took me a while to start getting comfortable with, a lot of, tinkering. I still don't do like electronics work, but, I'll have someone help me, with like soldering. But, I can do, strap locks, I've changed tuners and stuff like that, swap knobs. And then eventually I learned how to do proper setups, especially on floating trem bridges and stuff like that. That took so long to figure out how to do, with all the screwing in and all the,
Yeah.
making sure everything's balanced and leveled. But eventually I started doing that because I found out that more guitars I had, the more they needed to be worked on. And then eventually I figured out what intonation was one day, and I'm like, oh, so that's why this one guitar doesn't sound good. And I gotta figure out how to, tune the damn thing instead of just tune. I'm like, oh, it's in tune, but why does this note sound bad? He's like, yeah, dude, you don't have your intonation set up right. So I figured out how to do that.
What's that? Intonation.
So eventually I figured out, how to get, the bridges parallel to the body,
Right.
action and height and stuff like that. And then for this guitar, I have the bridge properly blocked off in the back, so I can drop tune without having to, set the thing back up and whatnot. So
Right. Does
a lot
that
of
what
that.
that was did that specific guitar have a Floyd Rose?
So it's not a Floyd, but it is the PRS floating bridge. It's the Generation 3. So
Okay.
as you can see, it comes off the body a little bit, just a little bit. But yeah, it has the hole right there for the trem.
Oh, cool. Nice.
But yeah, a guitar like my Majesty, is a full floating bridge.
Yeah.
Down.
Wow.
So that's the other. Eventually I had to figure out how to set that thing up. So the screws and everything. Figuring out how that all worked. It's scary at first, especially when a lot of those guys. They'll grab like a $50 Squire off of Craigslist and they'll start modding on that. But for me, I just looked at my Majesty and I'm like, all right, I got to figure out how to do this. Here goes a, a little sentimental guitar right here, but here goes nothing. But I figured that out, and really just small steps, lots of YouTube tutorials, lots of talking to my friend, who's the current tech at the Guitar Center that we run into each other at all the time. I got him a job there because I knew that he knew his stuff. He would do setups for me every now and then. And I asked him like how he started getting into it, and he's like, "Dude, you just pick up one of your guitars and just gentle." He's like, "Don't do like a stupid move. Like if you saw me do it and you would freak out, don't do it. But if you think you can be smart about it and then do it." And I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense." So once you figure out turning and twisting things, you get it. But
Yeah. Like, man, it took me like I didn't even know for years how to restring my own guitar by myself. Like
Okay.
like that's like I know people like I've seen my friends like they like even not just on gigs but just like when practicing like they'll bust a string and then like they like have an extra pack of strings with them and then they just like do the whole thing themselves and like restring and I'm just like I don't even know how to do that. I'm just like it was like I felt like like that's I always like in like to myself I've always kind of felt a little bit behind the times when it came to just like gear and stuff, but I felt especially behind like when like in regards to like knowing how to like set how to like get my guitar like set up and stuff like that because like I would always just like bring it to Guitar Center or bring it to a tech or something because like
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do any of it and like
Yeah,
it
totally valid. I did that for 2 or 3 years or so,
yeah.
probably 2 years or so, and then my dad got tired of having someone driving and having paying someone to do it. So he looked up how to do it, and we started figuring it out how to do it. But the problem was that the first real electric guitar I had a full Floyd Rose on it, so we always had to cut the ball end off and everything. And restringing the guitar was a pain in the ass. And of course, I didn't know like how to work a tremolo, so I had a guitar that was never properly tuned or intonated. From middle school through the first year of high school. And then one day my band director pulls me over and he's like, dude, do you know that your guitar is just not in tune at all? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, I tune it all the time. And he's like, yeah, but do you know like what intonation is? And I'm like, no. And he's like, and he looked at my bridge and right, the Floyd Rose is supposed to be sitting kind of like that. Mine was like that. And, I'm one around like things not fucking in tune. And he's like, you should consider getting like a fixed bridge guitar. And at the time, he had introduced me to Alter Bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I found the Mark Tremonti signature PRS at a Guitar Center, and that was like the first piece of gear that was that the first piece. I think that was the first thing I bought with my own money. Well, I split my first guitar with my parents. And then the Ibanez and the Digitech were Christmas and birthday presents two years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the first guitar I bought on my own, and I was like, "Whoa, I can like use different tunings. Like this is super cool." Because with a Floyd, you can't just retune the thing. It
Right.
doesn't work that way. So I like went to Open D tuning as soon as I brought it home, and I was like, "Ah, dude, this sounds just like Alter Bridge. It's so cool." Of course, that still has to be set up, but that's the thing. There comes a point in time where you realize that hey, I should probably know how to do this, whether or not you really need to or not, is another thing. But the whole reason I started bringing out like backup guitars, I never brought a backup guitar until I was doing was this in the it was in the Heights or Jesus Christ Superstar? I think it was in the Heights, the first outdoor musical that I did. It was a place in the park. And so we were doing like final dress, or it was the dress before final dress, and I just had my Strat with me, and we're playing through, and I break a string in the middle of the rehearsal, and so the MD looks at me and he's like, "You good?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just broke a string," and I had just one pack of strings in my case, just because I knew that like, oh, that's like people bring extra strings just in case. So that was the first time I had to change a string like in the middle of something where like other people were counting on me.
Right.
you know. So the next day we had final dress, and I started to bring a backup guitar, and he's like, "Oh, good idea." And I refuse to leave the house now for a gig without at least two. But again, it's one of those. It's an experience thing. Until you go through something yourself, where you're like, "Oh shit, I probably should have done X, Y, Z,"
Yeah.
and then for the next time. So that's why I finally got my my double case. I've got a little pouch that sits in it that has 2 packs of extra strings, an extra phone charger, batteries, Sharpie pen, pencil, pick strings, an extra whammy bar, an extra headstock tuner, my in-ear pack with an extra pair of earbuds, like, because I got sick of running into all these problems. So I watched a ton of videos online of like, hey, I'm pro guitar player from pro band. Here's what I bring out on the road. And I'm like, I just need my own versions of this stuff. So if I ever run into those issues, like I'm good to go. And the amount of times I have something crap out on me in the middle of a gig just sucks. So
Yeah.
that's one of those things though, until you go through it and realize, oh, I should have an extra one of these or I should know how to do that, right? you just don't know, until it
Yeah.
happens, and it happens to everyone at different times too. But
Hmm.
one thing I've never seen is I've never seen like a trumpet player show up to gig with a backup trumpet. I always have extra strings, but I don't see him bring, extra mouth. Like maybe he'll have, a couple different mutes, but he won't have different, mouthpieces and spare buttons or pads or anything.
I mean, I think that also kind of has to do with the fact that most trumpets go for like significantly more than guitars. They're like tens of thousands
I
of
love that
dollars.
debate when people, and again, budget is a thing for everyone.
Hmm.
A new guitar will come out and let's say it costs like 2 grand. You have the people who are like, oh, American made, handmade, high quality, cool. You always have the guy who's like, oh, 2 grand. Well, I mean, I got the same thing here for like 500 bucks. Like, why are guitars so expensive? And then someone will be like, that like my middle school flute cost 2 grand, and it just kind of puts into perspective, like, not for nothing, but the guitar is one of the more inexpensive instruments by itself as a whole. You
Objectively,
know,
yes. Yeah.
so I love showing up to gigs where like there's saxophone players and you see someone with like a silver Mark 6 and you're like, that's how you can tell the guy's dedicated because no one drops 6 grand unless they're dedicated. But right, they'll use that saxophone until it falls apart,
Yeah.
and then they bring it to a shop, they fix it, and then they keep on using it. So we're kind of irresponsible in the sense we're like, oh, we'll just go buy another guitar, right? Get another color, get another one.
Yeah, unless you have like an
Another cool
endorsement deal
thought.
or something. Unless you have like
Yeah,
unless like the saxophone or the trumpet player has like an endorsement with that company, there's no way they're getting multiple of those instruments.
definitely. And drummers might have like, their home kit and like their travel kit, but it's very seldom unless they're right, a professional touring drummer that they'll have more than like 2 drum sets.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my band busts my balls when, show up to a gig and they're like, all right, man, so what guitars did you bring this time? And then eventually I start bringing out the same two and they're like, oh, I'm real proud of you, good job.
Yes.
So I eventually just started leaving things in specific tunings. So I'm like, all right, so these two guitars are for this, these two guitars are for that, these two guitars are for that.
Hmm.
And it's crazy. So I've downsized to a point where I'm comfortable. Like I have exactly what I need for the job because eventually I started finding all my gear and I started treating them as just tools, right? They're all just tools for the job. So when I do my decades band, I need my two guitars to do my 70s set, my 80s set, and my 90s set. So it's a Strat or Telly, and then something with humbuckers. That's it. Leave those two in standard tuning, use them for the whole show. For my main cover band, Remember Yesterday, we play a half step down, and I need a backup. So two guitars that stay in E flat, and they stay there. That's what I use them for. And then Triple Addiction, I have my Novo and my Gibson 335. They do the country rock thing perfectly. Leave them in those tunings, leave them there. And it's brought down the amount of stuff that I bought drastically. I just really do trades these days.